Why? Happy Monday. I like to say it's a glorious Monday, but we all seen the news. If you're on Twitter, you probably saw it, and if you watch regular news sources, you know what's happened in Kentucky. But I'm not going to be talking about that. I'm going to be talking about Governor Abbott's. Actually, I misspelled Abbott, but that's all right. He doesn't deserve the second T for this one. But yeah, of course, Governor Abbott is going to pardon convicted murderer Sgt Perry. That's right, Sgt Daniel Perry was convicted of murder last Friday. It's a verdict that I don't like, and at the time of my Friday recording, I didn't agree with it. But over the weekend, I've grown to figure out. I haven't really figured out. I may still not like the verdict, but I could. A reasonable person that's on a jury would be able to come to the same conclusion that he's guilty. He caused the altercation by driving into the intersection. I mean, sure, that doesn't mean that people get to swarm his vehicle, but it wasn't like it was unprovoked. Now, if he was at the intersection and he did not turn onto the road, he wouldn't have provoked those people. The jury found that him going into the crowd, honking his horn, made him legally the aggressor. And I also think Garrett Foster is an idiot as well by holding his AK-47 in a threatening manner. It was low ready. Now people are saying that he could have easily shot Sergeant Perry, which is true, because low ready means that within a fraction of a second he could have pulled up his gun and shot him. But Perry shot first. But of course, I'm kind of going on a little rant here. I know people are not going to agree with me on that one, and that's perfectly fine. But according to the AP, Texas governor seeks to pardon Army sergeant convicted of murder. That's right, Texas Governor Abbott on Saturday that he's seeking to pardon U.S. Army sergeant who was convicted of murder in the 2020 fatal shooting of an armed protester during nationwide protests against police violence and racial injustice. Abbott tweeted because the state constitution limits him to pardon only on recommendation of the State Board of Pardons. The State Boards of Pardons and Parole. He is asking the board to recommend a pardon and expedite his request to pardon Sergeant Daniel Perry. I look forward to approving the board's pardon recommendations as soon as it hits my desk, Abbott wrote. Perry was convicted on Friday by a Travis County jury of fatally shooting 28-year-old Garrett Foster during a protest in Austin. He faces up to life in prison when sentenced. Texas has one of the strongest stand your ground laws in self-defense that cannot be nullified by a jury or a progressive district attorney, Abbott said. I have my issues with Jose Garza, don't get me wrong. I made plenty of videos in the last year talking about his soft on crime approach, and I don't approve of it. But a jury convicted Sergeant Daniel Perry based on the evidence that was presented by both the prosecutor and the defense. They just happened to believe the prosecutor's argument. Let's hear a phone call to the district attorney Jose Garza's office on Saturday was not answered. Perry's attorney argued that the shooting was self-defense as Foster approached Perry scarred with an AK-47 rifle. Prosecutor said Perry could have driven away before the firing his revolver. The witness testified that Foster never raised his rifle at Perry. But here's where it gets complicated. He was at the low ready. He was at the low ready. I think I still have this picture up. So he was at the low ready. You can see the butt of the gun right here. It's going down. Looks like he's holding it on the front, which means at any moment he could raise that gun up and fire within a fraction of a second. I think any reasonable person would see that as a possible threat. But the question is, does him driving in the intersection, honking at them, does that legally make Perry the aggressor? According to a jury, they felt so. Let's see here. Perry, who was charged in 2021, was stationed at Fort Hood, about 70 miles, 112 kilometers, north of Austin in July 2020, when he was working for the ride-sharing company, turned onto a street into a large crowd of demonstrators in downtown. A video streamed live on Facebook. A car can be heard honking before several shots ringed out, and the protesters became screaming and scattering. When Foster was killed, demonstrators in Austin and beyond have been marching in the streets for the weeks following the police killing of our Saint George Floyd. This area, Floyd died in May. Yeah. I don't think we really need to rehash all that. But here's my issue is with Governor Abbott pardoning Sgt Perry. I don't think the Second Amendment's under attack. I don't think stand your ground is under attack. I think we have two idiots that night made the wrong choice in how they presented themselves. And unfortunately, one of them is 5 feet under, and the other one is going to be in prison and then pardoned shortly after. I've been saying on Twitter that this is the case where two wrongs never make a right. So the question that the jury had was Perry's text messaging with his friend talking about the exact same scenario where if he were to go into an intersection, that would still make him aggressor according to his friend, and that you couldn't declare self-defense. A lot of people want to say that the DA held exculpatory evidence from the jury, which is not true. What is true that Jose Garza tried to get the sergeant, or not the sergeant, the detective, the lead detective, to lie on the stand of grand jury and removed 100 pages or 100 slides from a presentation that he would have presented to a grand jury that may have painted a different picture to avoid an indictment. Both the police chief and the DA threatened this detective. The end result is the detective was able to retire with his integrity intact, because both the police chief and the DA wants to prosecute Sgt Perry for murder. They got the indictment, and the jury decided Perry's fate. Now, some people argue that they should never have gone to court, but the thing is that there was two conflicting issues here. He shot and killed someone. He drove into a crowd, well, not into a crowd, but towards a crowd, honked his horn. They swarmed his vehicle. He was inciting a reaction. He got the reaction he wanted per the text messages to his friend, and he ended someone with lethal force. And now he has to live with the consequences of ending someone's life. I mean, sure, he did shoot someone with an AK, yes. I'm not ignoring the fact that Gary Foster's position. I'm not arguing that this isn't a threatening position, because it is. This is low ready. It only takes a fraction of a second to raise his gun and shoot through the car door and hit Sgt Perry. I know this from military experience. I know this from personal experience of conducting such maneuvers. That's the reason why it's called low ready. You're ready, but it's in the low position. And it's a show of force. It's considered brandishing in a lot of states. Now, I am not saying that he didn't have a right to bring his AK-47. I think he was an idiot. An idiot. He was a stupid idiot for holding his gun in the manner that he did, Looks like he was also looking for a confrontation that night because there's video evidence showing that he stated to the fact, calling a bunch of people pussies because they weren't going to approach him because he has a gun. He also mentions if there was a shootout between him and the cops will shoot him. So he also got the confrontation he wanted. He was just on the receiving end of a revolver. Now, I do think the jury made the right call. I don't think Second Amendment is dead in Texas, even though that was the title of my video as being a little hyperbolic. But now that I've thought about it more, that I've looked at more evidence and replayed the live tweets, and it was those damn texts that Sgt Perry had with his friend talking about the exact same scenario. And the fact that he drove into the intersection, honked at the people, and they swarmed him. He instigated that, so he's legally the aggressor. That's plain and simple. It's just legally the aggressor in a court of law, and that's why he was found guilty of murder. Now, there was the aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, which they did not find him guilty of, which is very interesting. But I also don't agree with Governor Abbott pardoning Sgt Perry, because he should face the consequences of that action. Maybe he should be maybe 3 years, 5 years. It doesn't matter how many years he stays in prison. It's not going to bring back Garrett Foster. There's no way to take back a killing of a person. But yeah, this case is very interesting. I mean, this really is. If I didn't realize it was real life and someone told me this story, you had two people with a gun that goes into a protesting. One gets shot, then you have a ambitious DA trying to prosecute. You have a lead detective that has integrity that says it was self-defense. Then you have the police chief threaten the detective. And it gets an indictment. The follow-up, then you also have the governor pardoning the person that's convicted of murder. It's a very interesting and sad story. And I don't know how this is going to end, but it seems like when you think this story is over, it becomes another chapter. I find that very, very interesting, and hopefully Sgt Perry loses his military job. I know that's kind of harsh, but he made an idiot choice driving towards maybe not towards the crowd, but near the crowd. So that's where I stand. I think the jury got it right. I think Governor Abbott wants to make an example out of Travis County for prosecuting a Army war veteran to pardon him. Or maybe it could be just simply political. Maybe the military, the Army stepped in and called Abbott saying, hey, we need him for a deployment. Who knows? Who knows where this is going? But it's definitely going to be interesting. We still have to see what the judge is going to say. Maybe the judge doesn't sentence him because he knows he's just going to be pardoned. Or maybe he sends him to the bare minimum, knowing that the governor's going to pardon him. Or maybe the judge pardons him to life in prison, knowing that the governor's going to overturn it. I don't know. What do you think he's going to be sentenced with? What do you think the judge is going to do, knowing that Governor Abbott is going to step in and pardon Sgt Perry? Now, keep in mind, this is good news for Sgt Perry. I think I rambled on long enough. So with that being said, that is my video for today. Leave a comment down below on what your thoughts are. But most importantly, stay safe, stay strapped, and have yourself a wonderful day, morning, or evening.